we got 134 sponsors, if I'm correct. I think that's what it is, and co-sponsors on Ron Paul's bill. And my guess is that we might be able to get 160 or 70. I think we need about, I don't know what the figure is, well, I guess 240 votes. If we can get that passed and then pass a bill to get rid of the Federal Reserve after people see what they've done, we get a chance. We have a chance. And that's very important. The Fed runs the entire system. I mean, the whole thing hinges on the power of the Fed. And that's why it's so important. So getting those two bills done is extremely important. The first one, which is still in committee, another sponsor in the Senate who has no co-sponsors, and which is Saunders from Vermont, and it's a similar bill, which is good. But if the House passes it, it'll probably go to the Senate in its present form, and then of course the bankers will open up, and they'll probably throw $100-200 billion to the congressman, and they'll vote against it. But I don't know when they're going to start listening to the people, if ever. And but anyway, that's where they're at. The only other thing that we could do to stop what's going on is to pass legislation instituting tariffs against or on goods and services coming into the United States. And that's the other key. And if we can get those two keys done, we can win.
Well, of course, the thing is that there is no way that the people who want to destroy this nation will allow tariffs. Tariffs were introduced by the people who created this country to protect our industry. The people who are in charge today want to destroy our industry. That's why they don't want any tariffs. And they keep telling us how great things are. Really, tariffs are going to make us so much more prosperous. Look at what's happening to our country. Look at our massive trade deficits. And they say, well, but they're good for the rest of the world. And they are good for the rest of the world. We're transferring our wealth to the rest of the world. And the whole idea is to impoverish the American people. And yet, I agree with you totally, Bob, but I mean, until the American people get rid of literally every member of Congress and every member of the Senate, they've all been bought off. In fact, I'm just reading some of the things Thomas Jefferson wrote, back in the early 1800s about how the bankers were able to buy the politicians. I'm reading the things that Andrew Jackson wrote in 1830s about how the bankers were buying the politicians. I'm reading an article that Robert Reich wrote back and published in USA Today on January 7th of 1999, where he said that Congress is out of the loop. I mean, these people already control everything, and you try to get a copy of that, why USA Today doesn't even remember ever publishing it, but it's up on the Internet, many, but what they've done is they suppress things that really tell the truth. This is the amazing thing about what's going on today. Thank goodness for the Internet.
Well, they control major media, and I was on a number of programs earlier today. One with Bob Ney, who is the defrocked congressman who was in taking special favors, we'll call them, from Abramoff, and he agreed with you on the corruption and the fact, what the Federal Reserve has done, et cetera. And we talked about NAFTA and CAFTA and the North American Union and things like that. But the people in Washington, they know what's going on. And they only can take this thing so far, no matter what they do, because sooner or later they're going to have to meet reality, and they think they've got it all figured out when in fact they don't, and things are not going to go that way. But the alternative to Congress reacting on the Fed Reserve or in the trade issue, there'll be revolution in the United States. There's no question. I mean, I had somebody call in a program today. He said, "Look, I'm in my 30s. I get 3 kids, and you're telling me I'm going to get laid off?" And I said, "Well, there's a good chance of it. About 35% of Americans are going to get laid off, and this is the reason why." And I explained it. But the Federal Reserve is totally corrupt. The American people work for them in Wall Street and banking, and that's just the way it is. And if it's not stopped, we'll be totally enslaved.
I agree with you totally, Bob, and I think we just have to try to get the American people to understand what is happening. The whole thing is so incredible. People don't understand that the Federal Reserve System and the major banks, and of course these are the major banks, can create money and credit out of nothing. And they created an artificial prosperity, and now they have intentionally and purposely and maliciously created this recession. The Fed was doing everything they can to prevent small banks from lending money by simply paying, as you pointed out, interest on their reserves. So they've sucked up almost over half a trillion dollars in reserves of the small banks, and then of course since they can leverage 10 to 1, that's almost $5 trillion that could be lent out there. They don't want the lending. The large banks are in on the scam, and they're specifically not lending. They're making it very difficult to get loans because, of course, they want to create this economic collapse. But it's so hard for the people to believe that when we hear all the things the government is doing to try to get things straightened out, and they got these wonderful programs like Home for Homeowners, I think that was about 6 months ago, going to help 400,000 homeowners. I think one homeowner actually had his mortgage rewritten. All the rest was smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, there's private organizations that are funded by government that are doing the same thing, especially in California and the Northeast. And, you say to them, well, where does your money come from? Well, we get private donations. I said, how much comes from government? Oh, 60%. So, it's just more socialism. All these people bought homes. They knew where they were in all.
Now, are you on the air? What's
going?
Well, this is Dr. Stan back here at Radio Liberty, and of course our guest is Bob Chapman, and we're talking about what's going on financially. The whole story is so incredible that most people really are incapable of understanding it. They cannot believe anybody would be wicked enough, but you see, the only way that they're going to be able to get the whole world to go into this world government is to collapse the economy around the entire world. And then, of course, people will have 2 choices. Every nation, you'll either come into this one world government or you'll face chaos. And that's exactly what's going on. That is why, of course, they created this chaotic situation. Well, Bob, you go right ahead and pick up the story.
I think I'm going to go back to the stock market again. This is the end of a bear market rally, and hopefully the market will come down rather slowly, and so it won't be too mentally destructive to people. But we're going to go back from 8,500 and test 6,600. It has to happen, and I don't think 6,600 will hold. There's no election this year, so there's no political reasons to hold the market up when it's so very difficult to do so, and especially to make it rally the way that they did. And I won't go into the reasons why they and how they rallied it, but the main thing was to get the value of the shares of financial institutions higher so they could float these giant 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion each company float these shares so they could bone up with some more money because those stocks are going to drop 50%, and that's what's going to happen. And I was short the financials we covered, made a giant profit, and then they ran up, and we shorted them again. Not all of them, but some of them. And, the logic of people that I have to answer questions for is so